Hi, thank you for joining us today. I am here to welcome Mr. Dave Glesener. He is a former student at the University of Minnesota Duluth and the Center for Regional and Tribal Child Welfare, and he's going to talk to you today about his experiences as a student in Duluth. So Dave, tell me about why you choose to attend UMD for your Master's in Social Work program.
That was an easy question because it's the only one I could go to. I was, at the time, it's been a while, and at the time, Cami and I had children and we needed jobs, and I was already employed as a social worker at St. Louis County in Duluth, and the only one that I could remain employed and still attend was the University of Minnesota Duluth. And it turned out that they started the 4E program up there, which is really a blessing for people in child welfare that would pay, at that time it even paid more than it does now. It paid for all tuition and it paid for books and there was another stipend that went with it as well. So that was the reason. And then it was sort of a blessing in a lot of ways because there are two reservations that cross over into St. Louis County, and many of the families that I worked with as a social worker were Native. And the School of Social Work has within it the Center for Regional and Tribal Child Welfare that has done a lot for trying to build capacity on American Indian tribes in Minnesota and all tribes. But the University of Minnesota Duluth, obviously located in Duluth, is its catchment area is primarily Minnesota and also Wisconsin, but people have come there from all over. And their program has got a lot of really valuable information in trying to teach their students what the culture is like on the reservation and off reservation as well. And how methods that would be better suited for working with Indian families. So that was a very pleasant surprise so I'm pleased that I was able to go there. Some of the relationships I developed with the professors and the other professionals in my class, I have today, and that's been 20 years since I graduated from up there. So that's how I ended up there.
Awesome, thank you. Can you describe an example of some of the content that you most remembered and how it impacted you?
There's a few incidents that still I remember very much today too. One of them was Maslow's hierarchy, the triangle that we learned in, I think every class that you take, and whether it's in social work or not, has got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Priscilla Day, the professor, changed it around for the Indian community. I go, what? How can that be? And what she changed around was the position of the community and relationships with parents. And that caused me to think a lot. But the connections between people, how important they are, and she placed them lower on the scale, meaning that those are things that are getting close to survival. And in another video, I mentioned about how the American way is a rugged individual. You don't need anybody else but you. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And the feeling that was presented up in Yuma is very different than that in Indian country. So I remember that part. The other thing I remember was in class one time, there was a person that stood up and really railed against St. Louis County and was accusing them of bad practice and so on. And Priscilla stopped them and said, there will be no prejudices in this class. And she easily could have let that go on. But you can't just go off and blast somebody or treat them poorly because you disagree with them. Now, I'm not saying that there's not reasons that to be angry at St. Louis County or that there aren't things that aren't done, but there has to be. So I was very impressed that of the quality of the willingness to call out prejudice wherever it occurs. So I thought that was very, very helpful. The second thing that I felt, even though that I am not Native, I felt very accepted and welcome there. So I thought that was a pretty important aspect as well. And thirdly, every summer there is what's called I guess it's called Summer Institute is what it's called, but it's a chance for a 3-day retreat in northern Minnesota for child welfares, and it's primarily for child welfare workers on reservations, but also includes usually the schools that have child welfare workers. And so I was able to go to those institutions. We learned a lot about language, about culture, stories, and that immersion into for what it was worth in 3 days, into a different way of looking at work and about families was very, very helpful. So those are 3 things that I pulled together today.
Great, thank you. Next question, how did the center's cultural and spiritual foundations impact your worldview?
It kind of goes over to what I was saying before about, first of all, community being very, very different. The center at UMD did a lot to encourage people to attend that may not have attended otherwise. I think for Native people in particular, I've done some interviewing of families about of people that have entered the program that are Native, and about how nervous they were about coming to a white institution. Am I going to lose my Native way of being? Am I going to change my thinking? Am I going to be assimilated? And walking on campus and meeting people in the department and at the center that are Native and had Native ways present really put people at ease. And that really impressed me as the importance of culture. And when you're part of the majority culture, you don't think about culture. You just are what you are, and you think that's how the world is. But when you're not, when you're sitting in a which can be a hostile environment, it can be certainly an environment that where you are not center stage, and the way you think and act may be even offensive to other people, or they consider it offensive when it really isn't. It's really welcoming. That is what I thought was really pretty good and cool.
Okay, awesome. How did the center overall and your educational experience at UMD impact your social work practice, in particular with Native families?
One more time, what was the last part?
Oh, particular with Native families, how did your overall educational experience at UMD impact your social work practice?
Oh, practice. I thought you said classes. Okay. I think to be able to see things differently, or willingness to see things differently, is one of the big traits that I think I've pulled from it as well. Also, the reasons for people being mad at you and angry at you. I mean, if you take someone's child away, I really can't think of something that's more tragic and more offensive and more traumatic than, I think if someone shut up my door and took my children away, that would be really, really traumatic. And when it happens, especially on the reservation, and there needs to be understanding and empathy, and I've often felt walking away from families that I wasn't raised the way these families were raised. And if there was just daycare, if there was just transportation, if there was just a job, things would be so much different for this family. And so it's like systemically, it forces you to think systemically rather than what's right in front of you. And part of the sadness about child welfare is that and child abuse and the things that have happened to children is it's not just because social workers are not using the best practices. There are some very good practices that social workers are doing, and there are some that are very insensitive as well. But it's like the whole gamut. There is also the poverty that's on reservations, and why is that the case? Because of the discrimination that happens. Even in terms of hiring social workers, there are not a lot of Native social workers, and the reason is because they don't have the opportunity to go and get your MSW is far more limited for someone with little funds and trying to just survive. And I think that's the biggest message, is that when people are surviving, it really has a different priority, and you need to honor that. And would I be any different if I were in the same situation? And in some ways, I was very envious of the community sense that the reservation provides. I had said it in another video, and I think it's really, really true. When a child is placed away from their home, it's not only the home that loses, but it is the community that loses, and the whole community is concerned about that child as well.
Thank you very much,
That's
Dave.
it?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
very good stuff, and thank you for sharing your expertise.
Sure.
I wish we could sit here for a longer
We
period
could.
of time.
We could.
All right, thank you for joining us,
Okay.
everybody. Bye.